In this lesson, we get to play with the Free Transform tool. It's up here in the Tools panel, and the keyboard shortcut for this one is the letter T. Now this tool can be a little bit scary for some people, mainly because it does a lot of different things, and it also has a couple of keyboard modifiers, as well as some buttons down here in the options area. But one useful tip is to keep an eye on your mouse cursor. As you move it around your object, you'll see it change. Let's start with this area here in the middle. The mouse cursor has a little move icon attached to it. And this basically means that you can move your object around your stage. Very simple. Now, let's move to the outside. We'll start at a corner box. When we're directly over the corner box, we see a couple of arrows pointing in opposite directions. This means that we can scale the object. Click and drag to scale. Now we have a couple of keyboard modifiers here. If you hold down the Shift key, Flash will constrain your object to keep its original aspect ratio. That's fairly simple. Now continue holding down the Shift key and also hold down the Alt key. It's exactly the same, except your object will scale from the center and not from the opposite corner. Okay. Again, at this corner, move your mouse a little bit out beyond your object. You'll see it turns into a rotate symbol. Again, this is very simple. Your object will rotate. Okay, that's a corner. Let's look at a side box. Again, we have the two opposing arrows, which means that your object will scale. Of course, we're only working in one dimension, so holding the Shift key down will not constrain the aspect ratio of your object. However, holding the Alt key down will again, just like the corner box, cause it to scale from the center. Now, at this point, there's only one more thing to look at on the outside edge of your object, and that's between these boxes. Again, we have opposing arrows, but they look a little bit different. Let's click and drag and see what happens here. This simply skews the object. Just like scaling, if you hold down the Alt key on your keyboard, this will skew from the center. Okay, that's it for the outside edge. There's one more, and it's right in the middle. If you move your mouse cursor over this circle in the middle, you'll see it will change and you have a small circle. What this means is you can move the center point of your object. Now, this may not seem like much at first glance. However, let's rotate this now. We now rotate from the new center point. So this can be very useful. Let's move it back. Okay, we've covered the basic operations now, so let's add a couple of more keyboard operators. Try holding the Control key down on your keyboard over a corner point. This is different. This allows us to alter the shape of the object. Hold the Control key down over a side point, and a very similar thing happens. Now there's one more thing before we start looking at the options area here. Over a corner point, hold down the Control and the Shift keys. Of course, this is on a PC. On a Macintosh, hold Command and Shift. And we have perspective. Drag sideways or up and down. Okay, let's have a look at these buttons now. First we have rotate and skew. Now this button does pretty much the same thing as a couple of the operations we can do without it. Instead of having to move our cursor outside to rotate, this button allows us to position the cursor directly over the corner point. Fairly simple. And instead of positioning the cursor between the points to skew, We just need to position it over a side point. Okay, that's fairly simple. Let's try this one. Scale. Well, that one doesn't do a whole lot because we can already do all of these operations using keyboard modifiers. What's the next one? Distort. This one takes the place of holding down the Control key on a PC or the Command key on a Macintosh. It does exactly the same thing. Now this last button gives us something completely different. It's Envelope. Click this and you'll see the outline changes. It might seem a bit confusing at first, but all it is a system of anchor points and tangent handles. Let's grab this corner and drag it away. It moves the anchor point, and these round little objects here are the tangent handles. As you can see, you have a number of these all around the outside. So you can make some pretty crazy modifications to your object. And that's it. Granted, we've covered quite a few things in this lesson. The Free Transform tool has a lot of functions, and there are quite a few keyboard modifiers to go with it. So you may want to go back and review this lesson. But before we finish, we need to look at how the Free Transform tool operates on instances of symbols in the library. We've been working on a basic graphic. Let's select this symbol here, or this instance. Again, we can move it, and we can change the center point, and we can skew, and we can scale. We can also rotate. So many of the operations are the same. However, have a look down here in the options area. Two of the buttons are grayed out, Distort and Envelope. Also, our keyboard modifier, when we hold down the Control key, does not work. It looks like it's trying to work, but it doesn't. And this brings up a very important point in Flash. You can't always do the same things to instances of symbols as you can with basic drawn graphics. Now this will apply to bitmaps as well. We can't use Flash easily to create a perspective on a bitmap using these tools. I'll be mentioning this again later on in the course, but for now, that's the end of our discussion on the Free Transform tool.